Darren, good morning. Very pleased to be here today in Newport, particularly on the day of a by-election. Always good for governance geeky people like me. For those of you who don't know the IWA yet, and you should, we are a think tank in Wales that does two things, essentially. One is providing a platform for independent comment and debate through the longest-standing current affairs magazine in Wales called The Welsh Agenda, the longest-standing current affairs magazine in English, and through our blog Click on Wales. And we also provide a series of debates. The other side of the coin is the research and partnership and policy work that we do in partnership with a lot of organisations. We're particularly known for convening stakeholders across public, private, third sector, academia and community groups, and community groups, and also across policy areas, so showing the join-up between things and taking that broader view and a step back. So we are independent both of government and political parties, so we can very much speak truth to power, and I think that's one of our greatest assets. So I'm here today to talk about re-energising Wales and our plan for Wales's 100% renewable energy future. This piece of work came out of a paper that started off actually under the leadership of my predecessor, Lee Waters, who's coming to speak with you this afternoon. We did a paper a year before the last Assembly elections in 2015, looking at the economic opportunities for Wales. And it was clear through a piece of work that Professor Gareth Wyn-Jones did for us that renewable energy had a really important part to play in that future. So we convened a group of stakeholders, and I'm delighted that at least one of our steering group is with us here today. And we managed to get some funding from 3 independent trusts and foundations, from the Friends Provident Foundation, from Polden Puckham, and from the Hodge Foundation locally. Our vision was that Wales should be meeting energy demand, we should be meeting energy demand in Wales through 100% renewable energy by 2035. Our group of advisors on our steering group included both energy companies, district network operators, academics, both from an anthropological and an economic perspective, Community Energy Wales, and a bunch of others. So again, making sure that we had the right voices in the room. And it's been one of those, you know when you're working on something that has a real sweet spot, because you can feel the energy in the room, can't you? And there have been a number of times when that's happened. So, you know, we know that Welsh Government's target is 70% of electricity from renewables by 2030. We think actually we can go further than that. By the end of 2017, we were already getting 48% of our energy from renewables, or electricity from renewables. We divided our work over the last 3 years into these six work packages. It became quite apparent at the beginning that we didn't have a baseline. It sounds slightly extraordinary, but it's true. We didn't have a baseline of what the current energy demand was in Wales across the various sectors. So we did one. So we commissioned Ian Knight of Cardiff University to put together that baseline. And then the second piece of work that we did was looking at the Swansea Bay City region as a microcosm of Wales, bearing in mind the offshore, onshore, rural, urban mix as well, because we thought we could extrapolate that up to a Wales-wide perspective. We then looked at the economic impacts of what that investment would be. We've then done a series of conversations and interviews with local authorities around the country and community groups, looking at what are the barriers and the opportunities around local and community ownership of renewable energy projects. We've then looked at the governance issues and do we have the right policy levers in Wales to do what needs to be done? Or are we expecting things from Westminster and Whitehall that aren't there yet? And then we've brought together all of our top-line recommendations in a final report and action plan. And it's a very beautifully designed and produced piece of work here. And I have a number of copies on the table over there. So if you'd like one, come and get one from me at the break. The First Minister gave a keynote at our launch a few weeks ago, mid-March. And I think what's important to say is that, you know, the shared intention around renewables is definitely there. We all recognise that. But what we have done is set out the steps for getting there. We're often really good at identifying, yes, that's where we want to go. We're less good sometimes, or we need to get better at identifying the way to get there. So This is an infographic about our ambition to power Wales in terms of electricity, heat and transport by renewables. This infographic looks just at electricity demand, and you can't see the detail of it. Actually, it's just behind Martin's head here. Sorry, and it's we think there's a possibility of getting 4,000 megawatts of tidal stream, wave and floating wind by 2035. That could create 5,200 full-time equivalent jobs. Okay, 5,200 full-time equivalents. That's going to take and it's going to create nearly 3 billion of additional GVA. Okay, so that's what we're talking about in terms of scale. So I want to go through our top-line recommendations, and then I've got a short video at the end. Our first recommendation is that, picking up on what Peter said, we don't really know what's coming at us, do we, in terms of Brexit? But we do think there's an opportunity here for Welsh Government to ride some of those choppy waters ahead. We think that if they establish a 12 to 18-month low-carbon stimulus, that could really help bridge some of that economic gap. We know Wales is going to be hit hardest by Brexit. So there are some practicalities here for us about bringing together the policy areas around energy, home, place, and community. Some of those are split up in terms of ministerial portfolios at the moment. We think there should be a revised renewable energy target. At the moment as well, from a funding perspective, only 2% of the Welsh Block grant goes towards energy. That isn't anywhere near enough. So there's much more investment into renewables needed. But we're also thinking about not where could new money come from, but where could current money be better invested. So we did a piece of work, I think it was 2 years ago now, looking at where Welsh local government pension funds are invested. So can I ask you, does anybody in the room have a local government pension? Put your hands up, please. Okay, do you know where it's invested? Probably not. Okay, so what we have done is Welsh local government pension funds can now be pooled. There's 15 billion in there. Okay, 15 billion. What's it invested in? We've done a piece of work showing setting this out. It's available on our website. And what we're calling for is a target of that investment to go into renewables and obviously be divested from fossil fuels. So on the back of that, the Wellbeing and Future Generations Commissioner Sophie Howe has written to all local government pension fund managers and advisors to ask them, can you start setting out some intentions for that to shift? There's money there. How is it being used? Can we create more of a virtuous circle of investment of existing money? So the other thing is, this low-carbon economic stimulus could also go towards establishing that comparative advantage of hydrogen and marine energy as a niche Welsh service in both wider UK and global economies. And that's picking up on what David was saying earlier. This is not just about Wales for Wales. This is about Wales leading the energy of the future. Our second recommendation is about Wales's homes. So extrapolating from the study we did in Swansea Bay City region, if we want to reach 20% of energy savings, we need to be doing that across Welsh domestic stock. That means targeting 870,000 households by 2035. 870,000 households. That's a hell of a lot. So we're looking at how can, for Swansea Bay City region, that's just 200,000 homes in that area alone. That's going to cost about £5 billion over the next 15 years. It's going to save £350 annually on household combined energy bills, but it also means really tightening up those building regulations and planning regulations, homes as power stations in future, really shifting how we live, not just what we do. Our third recommendation is around retaining the benefits in Wales. This is about requiring all new renewable projects above 5 megawatts to have between 5 and 33% community and local ownership by 2020. We we don't think that the parameters, the policy parameters around those targets are tight enough at the moment. We think Welsh Government should require, for instance, local authority business rate relief of 50% on the community percentage of shared ownership projects. And we think there should be much more support to the Welsh Government Energy Service too. There's more detail in the report, so I'm just going to whiz through it. The other angle is around local land for local benefit, and our next major piece of work is going to be around land use, so I might talk about that more later. But planning regulations, public land need to be used in support of new renewable energy schemes and create maximum local benefit. So yes, great to have foreign direct investment, but where is the local? How can we maximise the local benefit from that investment? And much more local and community ownership there. So more strategic search areas, considering community energy projects favourably outside of those strategic search areas to community organisations to have first options or the right to bid on public land for renewables, and greater weight being given to the social benefit of those projects. Now, there's an issue around capacity, isn't there, in terms of that delivery? So there is, I know Welsh Government have welcomed this and a number of the other recommendations, but making sure that there's sufficient capacity and expertise in key public bodies. So, we think that the 4 regional economic collaborations are the right way to get to make this a reality. They're the right vehicle to work through. We think a strategic view needs to be taken across each of those areas because each region is going to look very, very different, obviously. Natural Resources Wales, we think they should be using the money raised from existing renewables and able to ring-fence a part of that to finance new projects. We are having detailed conversations with them already. There's an issue around the grid, obviously, so where's all this renewable energy going to be stored and where can it be used from? So we've already obviously spoken with the new chair of the National Infrastructure Commission Wales. We did a study 18 months ago on both the priorities of that Infrastructure Commission and how those projects should be funding. We think they should do a strategic review of the grid. There's obviously a need for Welsh Government to have an Ofgem team within the government to secure the best RIIO-2 settlement and make sure network company business plans meet Wales's aspirations more broadly. And we also think there's a call for greater certainty for Welsh Government and other public bodies to provide greater certainty through upfront infrastructure to ensure DNO business plans align with those energy aspirations too. Getting smarter. There are opportunities, significant opportunities here around Welsh businesses, local and community organisations, and their ability to capitalise and lead on this shift in terms of technology. There are lots of really great local community energy clubs across the country, and those sorts of local energy trials need to be supported to provide flexibility, demand management, and try out peer-to-peer trading. Now, this is your slide in particular. Getting ahead in marine. There needs to be a really coordinated approach between government, industry, academia, and everybody else in that mix. So obviously, if the potential is more than 4,000 marine megawatts renewables, the challenge is to the move to commercialisation and moving to scale as well. I can hear, there's a slight, everybody's gone silent. It's great. Brilliant. So yes, developing Welsh-focused supply chains that are competitive. The Welsh economic offer needs to encompass investment capital, Welsh research and innovation, more high-value services, support for existing fabrication and manufacturing businesses to diversify. What matters is ownership in part or whole of both the capital and the intellectual property employed in that decarbonisation. And obviously, Welsh Government needs to lobby the UK Government for marine to be a subcategory in earlier stage renewables for support as an opportunity within the industrial strategy. I'm going to skip over the bioenergy slide here. Not that it isn't important, because actually heat is the biggest challenge in terms of decarbonising our energy systems. At the moment, 84% of energy is used on heat and transport. The other policy paper that we've done is on decarbonising transport. I'm getting a flashing red light, but I'm going to continue, like Magnus Magnusson. Air pollution is causing 2,000 deaths a year in Wales. That's 6% of the total. 1,600 of those are avoidable. It's because of particulates. And vehicle emissions are obviously the greatest cause of that. So I think my final point really is that, this is about a shared priority. It has got to be across housing, health, transport, economy, infrastructure, education, and rural affairs. It's a team approach. It's got to be a team approach. Who else on renewables are you working with? This is the marine energy sector. Where are your allies in other parts of the renewable sector? It is the same conversation we are having. We need to be pulling together. I hope that, brilliant, thank you, David, at the back, embedded my video for me. We did such a good piece of work, the BBC made a video about it. Thank you very much, Stefan Messenger. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.